Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guests. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. The way people behave is a reflection of what leaders tolerate. John C. Maxwell. Our guest to know, our guest today knows a few things about culture, leadership, the automotive world, and beyond in business. They've had a successful career turning non-winning cultures into winning cultures, turning uh, teams that weren't working into teams that work together, starting at a very young age in the business as a lifelong operator, founder of Pearl Auto Advocates, friend Drew Pearlman, who's taken worked their way up the automotive space and actually taken a dealership 7 out of 8 years, number one in I believe the state. We're going to
Yep.
talk about that. Pretty remarkable understanding culture, not just in a theoretical sense, but a practical, everyday useful way to look at culture. I'm excited to learn with you today, Drew. Thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast. And I got a million questions about all things automotive and team. So
Well,
thanks for
I'm
coming on.
hoping I can get all of your questions answered, Jay. I appreciate you having me on the podcast. And I think exactly what your podcast is. Culture matters. It's pretty much my mantra and my MO any place that I'm at. And I think it stems from the top and works its way down, just like you said. And it is an amazing thing to watch and learn and grow with people, and surround yourself with people that are better than you in certain areas, that can make you better. And that's what I've prided myself on my whole career is, not acting like I know everything, and learning every day. I'll tell you, every day I want to learn something new. If I feel like I didn't learn something new today, I feel like I'm kind of a little lost. And I think that that's a way to go through life is, to always be kind of challenge yourself to either learn something, do something new, something outside of what you normally do.
Mm. You started at 14.
14,
What
So,
kept you?
I started in the business. My dad had a little used car lot up on Route One, the famous Route One. If you see behind me, there's a little Route One sign, and that's kind
Yeah.
of a little homage to my background. And it was fun. It was a different environment. I learned a lot of things of what not to do in that time because it was the 90s, and the 90s was pre-internet, pre well, at least internet on in a broad scale in my industry. It was there were no reviews, and there was some crazy stuff that happened, like keys on roofs, slashing people's tires, like crazy,
What do you
crazy
mean
stuff.
key on a roof?
So, like, if a customer, was giving you a hard time, or you handed your used car manager a key that he didn't want to appraise, he would throw it on the roof, and you'd have to go and get it. It was the car business was really the Wild West, and probably the reason why it has such a bad name now, and it's still trying to bleed its way through it and get to a point where it doesn't have such a raw, terrible image.
I'm curious about what your take on, or okay, did you learn, or were you thinking in the way of a coach young, or did that come throughout your tenure? Like the manager versus coach ethos or thought process?
Yeah, and it definitely comes with time. I think when I was younger, I just needed to make money and take care of my family. Um, you know, it, when you're in a young age in this industry, it's number one, you can make a lot of money, and I think you really what I learned was I watched my father, and he was a relationship seller, and
Hmm.
there's a big difference between a fly-by-night salesman and a relationship salesman. The fly-by-night guys are the ones that are always looking for grass is greener. They're at a dealership for 2 years and they jump, or they're there for 6 months and they jump. Versus a relationship seller, which was my dad. And anytime we would go somewhere, whether we go to a restaurant or a diner or whatever, I used to think my dad was a politician because people used to walk up to him and hug him and give him a kiss. And I'm like,
Wow.
first of all, does mom know? Second, like, what is going on? What do you do for a living? And he sold cars, and it was just a refreshing, and that's what taught me how to do it the right way. But I also saw people do it way the wrong way. Um,
What were some of the wrong? So you said now the key, the throwing the keys on the roof thing. Who's throwing the key on the roof?
it was usually a manager that'd be pissed at their salesperson. Um, or like you would hide the keys from a customer so they don't get their trade key back, right? Because you don't want them to leave your lot. They used to block cars in with other cars. I mean, it was wild. The 90s were different in the car
Would you
business.
consider it a high pressure business to be in sales or in the actual dealership working? Is that a high pressure
It
environment?
is. It is because, back in the day, and I say back in the day, and it's not that long ago, but 15 years ago in this industry, everything was done by pressure. Everything was, you have a goal to hit, why are you not hitting it? What are you doing today? How many calls did you make? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Instead of coaching, it was all telling, right? What I saw from managers was they didn't coach their people. They just told them what to do without leading them the right way. And when I guess
Hmm.
it was my first job as a salesman in the new car world out of college, I was working as a salesman at a Volkswagen Subaru store. That was my first job out of college. And, you know, after I graduated, I asked my dad, "Do you mind if I get in the car business?" He said, "No, you did everything I wanted you to do." So, he didn't want me in the car
You
business.
studied marketing, right? Marketing
Yeah,
and
yeah, it was all marketing and advertising. And
go on.
I loved everything about the marketing and advertising. I was part of the first student around ad agency, around ad agency at Temple University. So I enjoyed it. For me, it was always like, I'm going to put myself in it. I'm a long-term guy. I want to see what that looks like. I watched my father be a relationship seller. So I learned
On
So what I learned in working with my father, and him being okay with me starting back in the car business out of college was that relationship selling. So I started my first sales manager position when I was 25 because I got promoted for no reason other than I was good at selling cars. I had no management experience, and that's what happens in my industry all the time. We promote without merit. And when I talk about merit, I talk about attributes that make somebody a good leader or a good manager. Not saying that I wasn't or I wasn't the right pick, but it happens a lot in this industry because you sell a whole lot of cars. They think, oh, well, he could be a good manager. And I would tell you, most of the times, my top salespeople do not make good managers. Um, I was never like I was a top salesperson, but I was never, um, I don't know. I was never an aggressive salesperson.
what are some of the traits that make someone a good salesperson in the car business, but might not make them a great manager?
I think it's a A-type personality. It's a very driven, motivated, by commission person, somebody that has, in my opinion, blinders on, and all they're looking at is the deal itself. But a good salesperson still builds relationships. But I don't think that typically they're not good at coaching other people that might be other A-type personalities or that might be different from them. Just because you're a good salesperson doesn't mean you're a good coach. And I really think that a manager, their title should have been coaching versus managing. And I think if that was something that we changed the wording in my industry and in every industry, right, is we need to have coaches. We need to have guys that are going to teach how to do things the right way and the way we expect, versus just putting somebody in a position based on dollars that they earned.
What are some of the, or what creates pressure inside a dealership? Where does it
Well, I will tell you,
naturally
the
come
pressure
from?
always comes from the top, right? So you have an owner that says to their general manager, here's our number for the month. We need to get X number of cars out because they look at we in every industry, we all look at metrics, right? So we look at our neighboring dealers, which are in your PMA, and we call that your sell report, your in-sell or out-sell report. And you want to be what they call sales efficient in your area. So you want to be a certain amount above 100% of sales efficiency, right? So the stores that I have been at have been way above the 100% mark in sales efficiency. Um, the reason that I got there was creating cultures. But that's the pressure comes from it goes owner to the GM, then the GM pushes it down to his managers, and then the sales managers push it down to the salespeople, right? But sometimes there's not a clear path because if you have a good owner that understands how to communicate to his general manager, and his general manager then knows how to in turn to communicate it to his team, because you also have to realize that everybody is so different and you have to manage people differently. And I think that one size fits all does not work in any industry. And I think once the better you get at that,
Mm.
the better off you're going to be. I had a manager teach me something early in my career, and I do it religiously. Anywhere that I go or I walk into, I will interview everybody all the way down to the janitor or the lock guy. And I want to know what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what they do on the weekends, what makes that person a better person, right? Not what makes them a better lot guy or what makes them a better manager or what makes them a better salesman, but what makes them a better person in life. And then I always focused on that. And that was a real big thing for me. And that helped me grow great cultures because once I knew how people ticked, I knew what positions also to put them in. So, like a lot of the stores that I'd gone into, people were in the wrong positions. So you
Really?
have guys that are maybe salespeople that maybe need to be BDC, or maybe they need to be in service, or the last dealership as I was at, I took one of my BDC people and put them in fleet. I took somebody else and put them into service. So you move people around to where they best fit. And most recently, when I was doing the consulting with Kia, I took their BDC person and made them do social media. And the only reason I knew that is because I found out she was a photographer and then she loves doing video. And I was like, well, why are you in BDC? She's like, I'm like, you should be in social media. She's like, oh, I would love that. I'm like, well, let's put you there because you're going to thrive in an environment that you like doing, right?
How do you see the BDC and the sales collaborating in the most effective flow?
I would say that BDC is really close to being on the way out, in my opinion. And the reason I say that is there's too many touch points in a dealership right now. So you have a BDC person that talks to a customer, right? And this is where I think that areas of communication get lost, and this is where the consumer gets frustrated. They tell the BDC person everything. I'm coming in. Here's what I'm looking at. Here's everything. You spend a half hour on the phone with this BDC person, and that person walks in the door, and you go, okay, here's John. He's your salesperson, and then John starts the process all over again. So there's already frustration on the customer side, right? Because they walked in, they go, well, I already told this. I told you guys this. What do you mean? Why are we starting over? And then the salesperson's got to be on the defensive to start again. So I truly believe that the BDC is going to evolve its way out. Your sales managers should you be your BDC. You should have a system where the customer should go to the salespeople and your managers, and you work as a team to make sure that you're giving that customer the best. What I call the Ritz-Carlton experience is something that I taught at every dealership, and we can get to that.
Hmm.
But I think the BDCs are going to, especially with AI, because AI is good as a partner, as a helper. You have to identify an AI agent as an actual employee and not AI, and it's doing my job for me. That person should only fill in the gaps. And I call it a person because it truly is, because they're going to respond to an email, they're going to respond to a text, they're going to engage with a customer when that salesperson or manager isn't available, at least to be get the information, grab everything so we can help the customer in the best possible way, in the fastest way.
What habits and rituals do you live out when you were a salesperson and as well as observe in other high producing salespeople?
So for me, why they promoted me within my first year. The reason why they promoted me is because I had the tenacity to know everything about my customer. So I used to keep what they call buyer's orders or and I used to keep a 3-ring binder of them. And on the back, I used to write, they have a 7-year-old son. He likes soccer. And every time I would do my follow-up call, I would ask about Johnny, or I would say, how's your mom doing? I know she wasn't feeling well, or whatever it happens to be. And this is before the days of CRMs. and I used to make my notes every time I would make my call. And I was religious about it because out of college for a very short stint, I worked as a recruiter and I was on the phone all the time. I hated the job, worst job ever, but it taught me to be really good on the phone. So then, I was really good at making sure I stayed in touch with my people. And after the first year, I was really just working repeat and referral customers because I was a relationship seller. I took what my dad did in the he gave his heart and soul. And then I just took it to another level and said, okay, well, I need to do this on a larger scale because I don't want to sell you a car. I want to sell your mama, your dad, your cousin, I want to sell everybody a car. And that's what, I still have people to this day from when I was a salesperson that reach out to me to buy a car. So that's, 30 years of knowing somebody and that to me, that's crazy. I don't know many people that know people that long.
How did you make the transition from selling person A a car to asking person A to meet person B or person C to help them?
So I would never do it early. This was the thing that drove me crazy about salespeople is they would call right when they bought the car and said, "Hey, by the way, do you have any other friends in the market for a car right now?" And that is the biggest turnoff, right? Because you're asking them for something before you've earned anything. So typically, I wouldn't do it until about the 6 month mark. But they've already gotten two calls from me. I would say, "Hey, how's everything going? How's everything going with Johnny? Hey, by the way." And now at that third or fourth phone call, I would say, "Hey, by the way, I send $100 referrals, and I talk about this when I'm selling the car at the end, but I bring it back up. Hey, by the way, don't forget I still have that $100 referral thing. What else I did, which was different than most people, is I tried to be different than everybody else. And this was advice that I gave to my salespeople is just to be different. And to this day, it works. So when I was a salesman at Volkswagen, I bought magnets, and they said, it was a Volkswagen bug, and I had them. I sent them to all my customers. I said, hey, if you ever need to bug me, here's my phone number. And people put it on their refrigerators back in the day when we actually used magnets and stuff like that. Not saying we don't do it now. I also send greeting cards on Groundhog's Day. Why did I do that? Because nobody else gets a card on Groundhog's Day. And then it was just a groundhog. It was just a picture of a groundhog, and it said, "Hey, just popping in to see how you're doing." And that was
When is
it.
Groundhog's Day?
What's that?
When is that?
It's in the beginning of spring, right? So
I
it's
love that.
it's right
So
when the market in the car business you start getting busy again.
oh, so that
So it's a
seasonally it
trigger in my
aligns
head
with your
because it was always in March. And March, I had been with Nissan for 24 years. So March was their big year. So March in Japan was their year end. So their year end fiscal was in March. So that was always their biggest month. So I always knew coming into that, okay, I need to get my stuff rolling. So what am I going to do different than Johnny over here? Here's how I'm going to do it.
at the end of each sale, you're saying that you would bring up you'd start the conversation or in their head about the incentive, and then you would talk to them twice. You would give your customer a call twice before 6 months into it
Yep.
for the ask with the incentive.
Correct. And most of the time I would get a referral without asking for it. And the reason why is because I
On
would
the
ask the
third
right
call,
questions when I was, what's that?
was that on the third call, 6 months in,
Usually
or
first or second call, I would just be like, how's
oh,
everything going with the car? How's Johnny? How's everything going? Oh, I know you were going on that trip. And then they
hmm.
just go, oh my God, I have a friend that's, I'm going to tell you, like, she's going to call you or he's going to call you. And that's what made me feel good about myself. I felt better about myself when I got a referral than taking a customer from beginning to end. It was always about the long game and it was always about referrals and prospect.
How did you stay how did you keep track of the customers?
A binder. I had a 3 ring binder, and I printed out my buyer's orders, and I would make a note, and I would put the day. Now we have CRMs to do it. The problem with CRMs is it makes us lazy. You know what I mean? This was a manual thing I had to do. And I'm an old school guy. I keep like a notepad here with all of my notes every single day of what I want to do, what I want to accomplish. I'd rather see it and write it versus it
When
being
you
in a
say
computer
had to do it, how often did you check it?
every 3 months.
The
You're talking
binder,
about CRM or you're talking about my notepad?
the notepad.
Yeah, yeah, no, every 3 months I'd go through it every single like so. I'd have dates on it. I just flip through it. Next, I'm on to the next month. I'm on to the next month. And it would be I'd leave it open. So I would know where I'm going next. It was just it was just
And
based
this,
on time.
who was in this binder?
Every customer I sold a car to. So
Ever.
every customer I sold a car to, I would take the buyer's order, and then I know what day it was because everything's in daily day order. So I just every day I'd go through 10 of them, right? And make those calls. And not every day, because some days I got busy doing other things. But I knew I was always on top of it because I kept track. Because if it's March 25th and I'm on March 20th on my binder, okay, well, I need to get to the 25th.
Yeah, so an anchor to move faster, urgency.
Yep.
What were some of your core values then, even if they weren't written down?
It was really just all about getting to know my customer on a micro level versus asking them what kind of car they want. It was all about, oh my God, I love your shoes. Where did you get them? Or I like your purse. And then we would start talking about who we were as people, because I think that number one, innately, people want to talk about themselves, like I'm talking about myself right now,
Well, and
right?
it's a gold mine of tactical. I mean, this is so so far. If I'm a person listening to this that's selling something car specific,
Yeah,
I have a customer. You're saying you tracked who they were and you would contact them regularly throughout the year. And
absolutely.
this book you looked at every day.
It was
Or
my Bible. I called it the Bible. I said I got to go to the Bible and go through what I got to go through. Every day it was, I'm going through the Bible, and I would go through it. And
wow.
what was really cool too, and I think this
Wow.
is where things get lost, I think, in this industry is um, the short-sightedness of a sale, where if you're not building a relationship, you don't get to know who that person is on a micro level. You're never going to be able to get to the macros. You're just not. And when you get to know your people, I'll tell you, I have relationships of, for, like I said, 30 years that people have been buying cars from me. I just had a guy call me yesterday. He's like, "What am I going to do?" I was like, "Well, now I have my Pearl Auto Advocacy, and I now you can buy any car, and I can buy it for you because that's the pain point in the industry. Nobody wants to go buy a car. They
What
had
is
a Drew
Pearl?
before.
What is Pearl Advocacy and why did you start it?
All right, so I started this because I've been in the industry so long and I've seen the pain points of when people would used to come into my dealership, they would go like this, like it was a breath of fresh air because they didn't have the pain points of, oh, let me talk to my manager. They already met me when they walked in the door. Because the first thing I taught as my to my all my managers was early management intervention, or EMI. Make sure the salesman and the customer, we all have a conversation together and lead them and let them know what's going to happen next. There's nothing worse than walking into a car dealership. First of all, it's uncomfortable. People just stare at you. They don't come up to you and greet you in a warm way, because I've been doing some mystery shopping recently and
They
it's
do
terrible out
stare at
there.
you.
It's horrible. But you need to tell the customer, here's what we're going to do. How much time do you have? All right, here's what I can get done for you today. Dot, dot, dot. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's my time expectation. If we can't get it all done today, is there a better day that doesn't work for you? Or I want to get this all done today. I have at least 2 hours. Great. Because we're going to at least need that to show you the car, make sure it's the right vehicle, fits you, your needs. You might even want to take it to your house and check it out, right? Make sure it fits in your driveway, or take it for an extended test drive. I did that a lot because people were so amazed that, "Oh, you're going to let me take it home?" I'm like, absolutely. How do I know? How do you know if you're going to like it or not? You think a 5 minute test drive is going to let you know that?
Hmm. Hmm.
But because this business is so high pressure at most stores, and and the customer feels it when they walk in the door, and by the time they get done and they got to talk to the manager to get pricing, and it's a 15-minute ordeal just to get a number on your trade, and then another 20 minutes just to get the pricing on the car, and you're just sitting there. And in the today's day of instant gratification, that doesn't work anymore. So that's why I build out this concierge type approach where I take a deal from beginning to end, whatever type of vehicle it is. Like right now, I'm working on a BMW and a Mercedes for a gentleman down in South Carolina. But he told me everything that he wants. He doesn't want to spend the time going to dealership. He knows exactly what he wants, and he wants me to negotiate, get him the best possible deal, and have the vehicle delivered to his house. That's it. And then he can sign everything remotely on an iPad or an iPad. That's where this business should be going. And so I also have a second part of Pearl Auto Advocacy where I do this for dealerships as well. I'm talking with a dealer right now where we're going to build out a concierge service for the dealership. And people will pay more for a better experience.
How long has the concierge culture existed in the space? And is
So
it
it's been around a little while now. There's a big difference. There's two different things. There's a broker and then there's an advocate. An advocate for me is I work everything on the back end. I don't get paid by the dealer. You pay for my service. Whereas a broker works with the dealer, negotiates, and they get paid by the dealer. So let's say they negotiated to $1,500 under invoice, and then they sell it to the customer for $1,000 over. Now they're 2,500 to the good, right? And they make all that $2,500 profit. I don't want that. I don't want there to be any collusion. I want the customer to know that I'm working to get them every last dollar. Now I'm not trying to take dealerships out of business. I loved it. So I had a guy on TikTok who reached out to me when he started it, this guy Billy the Car Kid, and I did deals with him. We shipping cars all over the country because it was an easy deal for me. I loved it. Hey, you're getting me the customer, you're getting me everything I need. I don't have to do anything. I'll take 100 of those a month. So what I've realized is now that I took a step away from the industry to spend more time with my family, I said, you know what? Maybe let me see what I can build out for both the dealer side as well as the customer side.
how much time on average does it take from a customer to buy a car out of their life?
Well, I will tell you, it is a long time. On average, customers spend about 8 to 10 hours just online researching the car before they even walk in the door of the dealership. Then they go in a dealership and then they want to shop and they go from this store to that store. And, my big thing was always, what is your time worth? Even when a customer would come in my dealership and they say, well, I'm going to shop you against Faulkner and Colonial and Conticelli. I'm just naming like my local competitors. And I said, and then I would look at them and I go, what do you do for a living? Usually I would already know at that point. I'm like, you're an attorney. How much do you get paid an hour? How much what's your time worth? I'm like, so you wait a second, you're going to tell me you're going to save $300 by going to this other dealership, but you're going to spend 4 hours doing it? Does that make sense? And then they would finally look at me and go, yeah, it doesn't make sense. No, let's get it done right now. What are you really going to save? Now, with me being an advocate, I can do all of this for them, and they don't even have to make a call. They don't have to do anything. They just have to know what car they want to buy. Or
It's
not even. I can help them with
I,
that too.
this wasn't the purpose of this, but I'm sold. I would never. Oh man, I,
You hate it.
I, I just, yeah,
Nobody wants to walk in
I'm
a
just thinking
dealership.
like, what. I've never heard of this, and it's like I must live under a rock. This is like an offer you can't refuse. I
Right.
mean,
And it's not that expensive
I'm
either, right? Like,
excited for
so
you.
I'm not charging them thousands of dollars to do it. It's a 795 flat fee. I say here, I'm on my website, go to my website. We're going to schedule a 15-minute call. Worst case scenario, at least I give you 15 minutes of advice that can help you with your purchase experience. Even if you don't use my service, but at least I've given you a leg up and you can understand. And now a lot of my TikToks and Instagram, I talk about culture, I talk about talking about warranties, like just whatever you want to know about leasing. Like behind me, if you look here, I have a board, and this is why lease. We're going to talk about this tonight, and then we're going to talk about different things about warranties and stuff like that. So
I'm
that's on
curious your
my
take on the culture of automotive in the sense that, you know, is co- con is the consumer's trust in the automotive s- experience so low that advocates are necessary?
yes,
That's
and that's
that's a
the
question that comes to mind.
so
And
so
then
here's what I say.
my follow-up to that is like, what should dealer group? We have dealer group owners that listen to the show, and and then if you can give them some coaching on
Yeah.
how to
It's a,
respond to
it's a, don't
that.
worry, it's a free 15-minute phone call. No, but no,
Yes, and
right. But that's the truth of it is it's really not a hard process. You just have to, it starts at the top and it's a culture thing, right? First, you have to build the culture out in your store to understand how to build out a concierge service. So right now I am talking to a dealership that's local and he's like, wow, I never thought of this. Oh, I never thought of that. And I'm like, well, why not? Like what was stopping you from that? And the big thing is customers don't feel like coming in for service. They would love to have their cars picked up at their house. Um,
They would love not to come into a dealership to work, negotiate the deal. They would love it to just be easy,
Oh, wow.
transparent, honest, right? So all of those things you build into a concierge service in your dealership versus having a middleman for middlemen. And that's what I say. I say I'm a middleman for middlemen. That doesn't make sense. This industry is broken because I shouldn't exist. I shouldn't be able to make as much money as I made this week because of dealerships not doing
Well,
their job
I don't
properly.
go grocery shopping. We have it come to the house. Why would I not? Why would I want to go to a dealership?
And that's the age we're in right now. However, we have dealer groups and owners and operators that sometimes, number one, are behind the times. Also, if you had owners or operators that lived through the COVID era or managers that started during COVID, that is inflated value of your position because we all made a whole lot of money because of a shortage, not for customer service at all. Right. So now it was like, oh, well, you just call me. I'll give you the price only if you call. Or no, I don't give them a price. Just tell them to come on in. And let's string this customer along instead of doing it the right way. And I think COVID really hurt us because it was great in a sense because we started talking about delivery services and all that stuff. And we're like, yeah, this is going to be great until it was a competitive advantage in the auto industry and said, oh, we have a shortage. Let's not help anybody. Let's take an advantage of the consumer and make as much money as we possibly can. Now, a lot of dealers did it. I was not like that. I did not want to do that. They were putting addendums on cars and it created a bad environment where people were making too much money for a subpar experience.
Uh, how about the different departments of a car dealership and your take on how they work together, how they function as a system?
I would say that's one of the most broken things in a dealership. And I'm glad you said that because what happens in most dealerships is you have your sales department, you have your service department, right? And they do this all day. Oh, well, no, that was sales. No, that was service. And there has to be from a general manager or owner, whoever's operating that store, there needs to be cohesive meetings with all of your managers and making sure everybody's on that same page and that we're working together as a team, not working against each other. But you see it a lot in this industry where it's like, oh, well, sales service will handle that. Or, oh, no, go talk to your salesperson. No, I'm going to handle it. Whoever's talking to that customer, handle the situation. And then if you can't figure it out, then get somebody else involved. But don't just say, blindly, that's not my job. And that's not, and that happens a lot between service and sales in most dealerships.
What are some habits that operators of dealerships do that might be blind spots that could undermine their culture and undermine their leadership?
I think a lot owners sometimes get mystified by gross profit. And just because you have an operator that can make you a lot of money doesn't mean that they're doing it the right way. Now, I always said, the blind squirrel can find a nut, but you have people that, maybe aren't inspecting what they expect. And as an owner or a GM, you should be having those meetings weekly with your GM and with your GSMs, and you have to just keep that accountability. And the problem is well, what I think is a problem is sometimes we look at, oh, hey, we're making a lot of money, we're doing good, but there's complaints. But you know what? I'm not gonna worry about that because we're making enough money, right? Or yeah, well, I don't like doing it that way. Well, why not? And I think this is where the whys come in. And I think as a good GM or a good owner, I think if let's say you're a single point store and you're an owner, you need to be involved in the daily basis, or you need to have somebody that's your complete. You've trained them to be you because you want to have ownership. For me as a GM of a store, I want to feel like I own that dealership. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? I have pride in ownership. And if you have a good owner that pushes that down, and now you have a lot of all these large stores, right? Now most of it's multi rooftops. You really have to inspect what you expect. That's all.
Where's the attention of the proud owner? Where's their attention? What are they focusing on?
They look at a financial statement every single month, right? Just like any other business operator, they look at a financial statement and say, well, why did this department not do good? Or why did that department not good? But if you're a good owner, you say, let's figure out why this department didn't do good. Not saying, well, what did you do wrong? All right, how can I help you? Well, as an owner, how can I make your job easier to so you can produce more for the dealership? And sometimes taking the short-term losses is a long-term gain. And what I mean by that is sometimes you have the wrong people in position, and if you don't change that quick, it can erode your store. Gary V, I love Gary V, and Gary V says something the other day. Well, he says it all the time, but he says he fires people that aren't good people. He says, I don't care how much they earn, but if you're not a good person, I don't want you working for me because you're going to erode the culture like that. And that's huge for me. Like, if you're a bad person, I don't want you working for me. If I get that you're being shady or something's just not right, or I just feel like you're a deceitful person or you lie to me. There's three things I don't put up with: lie, cheating, and stealing. Those are pretty much terminable offenses for me. Now listen, lying is that there are some white areas of lying, and and it could be perception of conversation. So sometimes I'm saying, well, is that your perception or is that what you really said or what really happened? Because sometimes lying is a little bit different, but if you steal, you cheat, and you lie, those are my three. They're just my non-tolerables.
You mentioned, or it was when I was preparing the 5 foot rule.
Yep. So
What is
I
that?
taught the 5 foot rule. And you knew if you walked into my dealership that if somebody's within 5 feet of you, they're going to either ask, "Hey, how are you? Are you having a nice day?" Just a greeting, just saying, just being nice, just generally being a nice person. Hey, did you need a water or anything? Oh no, somebody already asked me. Not a problem. And it was always if you're within 5 feet of somebody and they're just kind of if they're meandering or they're kind of looking around. Now listen, sometimes the person can just be looking around, but I like it when somebody engages. And so if you've gone to any nice restaurant, I mean, I'm sorry, any nice hotel, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, anytime somebody walks by you, they say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" You'll notice that, and that is what the culture in a dealership should be. I'm spending $500 or $1,000 for a night for a room, yet I'm about to pay $30 to $40,000 for a room with wheels. Shit, I should be shining their shoes when they walk in the door,
What does
right?
that do for a customer to recognize them?
I think it drops the guard, right? They feel like they're in a place where it's warm and comfortable versus a place where, okay, this person didn't talk to me, or why is this person just staring at me? Or, because we all get in our own heads, I mean, these 6 inches are pretty crazy up here sometimes. And we think people are saying stuff, and it's perception's reality in any industry. But like I said, you go to a nice hotel or a nice restaurant and you get treated different, right? Than if you went to a Red Roof Inn, right? Or a McDonald's,
Hmm.
versus a Lebec Fin or, one of these high-end restaurants.
What are some, I want to go back to Pearlman Auto Advocates, some
Yeah.
objections that you've gotten from auto groups of this another way of servicing customers, of creating customer experience. What are some objections that you've gotten and your responses to them?
So I haven't gotten much rejection yet, which is good. Because I just tell them it's an open conversation, whether you want to do it or not, that's up to you. And I don't think people really, I think most good owner and operators or a good GM in this world and somebody that I would align with understands the value of it, but maybe thinks that they can do it on their own. And I think that that's the only thing that like slows down the process for me helping them. Is what happens is a general manager has so many responsibilities and general sales manager has all their responsibilities. So if you're going to add that onto the plate to build out an actual department to do this, it's time consuming. And then he might lose focus on other things in his dealership or her dealership. Um, it really has to do with understanding that sometimes you need help. And maybe I'm hiring somebody that's smarter in that area. Like I told you earlier, is I always surrounded myself with people that were better at me in certain things. Number one, I wanted to learn from them, but number two, I knew I wasn't great at that job. So I wanted somebody that was better than me at it to be around me so I could get better. Right. And that's that same philosophy to all my general managers and owners out there. See, it goes back to the what's your customer's time worth, right? What's your general manager has all these other responsibilities. If I come in there and it takes me 6 months to build this out successfully, if you try and do that as a general manager, it's going to take a lot of time and there's pain points. And you really have to really invest in changing the culture of the store to follow around that. And when you have somebody on the outside like myself that comes in, it gives them it can actually let them go, okay, I can breathe and do my job while you do this, and this is going to get me to X, right? And I'm going to show them the ROI. That's the best part is the return on the investment is I always tell people, do not, if you can't track it and you can't measure it, you don't need it. This is one of my big things in the car business. Um, that's why I talk a lot about digital, but that's a whole nother thing because I do digital consulting as well. But when you're talking about experience and you're talking about relationships and you're talking about all of these things, sometimes you need somebody better to come in and do it and help you do it.
How about from the consumer side? At first glance, it sounds like something that, yeah, the let's say the lawyer or the business person with 100 locations is going to say, oh, I'll have a consigliere a shopper for me.
Yes.
But is this something you believe, and if so, why the general consumer is moving towards concierge or not physically going to a dealership? And is that within access to them financially?
Yeah, and I think it is. I think I shouldn't exist, right? And now listen, my fee isn't that much, and I've talked with customers that go, well, I could do this myself. Not a problem. Here's the deal. Call me for 15 minutes. If I can give you some advice, at least help you. And then if you get fed up with the process, reach out to me. And I'll save you at least that in time, energy, and obviously dollars. But yeah, there's definitely people that say, well, I can do this myself. And I don't have a problem with them doing that. But if they want advice, watch my TikToks, watch my podcasts, watch my Instagrams and
What's
stuff like
been your
that.
reception of putting out that social content on these topics, consumer wise?
It's been great, really receptive on both sides, which is cool because, I do these TikTok lives and I have GMs, GSMs, and then I have customers also in the same conversation. So now you have a group of people that we're like-minded. We want the process to be easy, seamless, transparent, right? And now
Mhm.
we're all in a room talking together. And I think the customer, it's a welcoming feeling for a customer to not have to walk in that dealership and to, get some advice on warranties, get some advice on leasing that's free of charge that we want to. Like there's a lot of very good and I think that there's a lot less bad dealerships than there are good dealerships out there. But the bad ones make the good one like because of the perception, right? Perception's reality. If a customer goes to one Kia store and has a bad experience, Kia sucks. I'm not dealing with Kia, right? If my wife went into a Kia dealership and she got roughed up, I guarantee you she would not go and shop for a Kia. Now, are all the Kia dealerships bad? No. They're not all run by the same person either, right? So it's hard because, as a manufacturer, as a Nissan or a Toyota or Honda or whoever, they should want this built out in their stores so the customer does have a better experience.
Is there a price point that it becomes less advantageous in your estimation? Though, if I'm getting an $80,000 car, maybe I'll think about advocacy. If I'm getting a $10,000 car, maybe I won't. Or
Yeah.
there, I'm just curious of your take on that.
Yeah, I would think it's definitely a customer that's on, not on the lower budget for sure. If they're looking for a $10,000 cash car, I'd still want to have the 15-minute phone call with them. So I could at least tell them what to look for, right? Hey, make sure you do this. Make sure you get a third party inspection. Make sure you run your fingers down the paint just to see if there's been any paint work. Just like little things that the consumer doesn't know that after 35 years in the industry, if I could at least give that person a little bit of advice and help, even though they can't afford my service, they saw my TikTok and it helped them buy a car, great. That makes me happy because at the end of the day, what makes me the happiest is when somebody that either worked for me calls me and says, "Hey man, thank you so much. I'm now a manager here," or a customer calls me and says, "Hey, I got a friend that wants to buy a car." Those are my two favorite things because number one, they both had good experiences and they're referring me.
So, is that insinuating that the $10,000 person, the person buying the $10,000 cash car, they might have an uncle that's buying a $2 million Bugatti?
Right.
It
Exactly.
seems like the core value that you're looking at the people. This is about relationships for you.
Exactly. So Just because you're buying a
And they may or may
$10,000
not have
car
the
for
2
your
million
kid
data.
doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're not a lawyer and make $300,000 or $500,000 and you once again you need that Bugatti, shipped to
You're
your house.
willing to talk to people. That seems like a theme in your sales and leadership approach.
Talk to everybody. I mean, short example, I was out today. I was with my dog, went for a ride. Guy pulled up next to me, said, "Your dog's really nice." I talked to this guy for a half hour. I know he lived down in North Carolina. I know what kind of job he has. I know he worked at Merck and he got laid off. I can tell you his life story. And why would this guy tell me all these things? Because I was genuine. I innately wanted to know about him. Because I know he might be a contact in the future. I gave him my business card and said, "Hey, if you ever need
Hmm.
anything, reach out to me." He's like, "Oh, I'm definitely going to reach out to you." Just a conversation, you know.
What advice do you have for our listeners that are bashful to ask
Talk
for?
to everybody. Talk to everybody and
Was there
find
ever a
out.
time where you were afraid to shake somebody's hand or ask for, get to know somebody?
No. From a young age, I was, even my guidance counselor in high school was like, "Yeah, you should go into sales." It was who I was as a kid, but I also grew up in an industry that was sales. Like my dad had a car lot, so I watched my dad. So from a young age, no, I didn't have that. But I also have had salespeople that have worked for me that have felt very uncomfortable. And I said, you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And once that happens, you'll see how much things do and how things go. And what I always tell them is, listen, people want to talk about themselves. Bring something up that you find interesting about what they're wearing, what they're talking about, because people are going to go. And then you can ask questions on top of questions based on what they're talking to you, and you can lead that conversation where you want to lead it to. But you
Hmm.
don't get there right away. Don't think you're going to get to a car sale in a first conversation. Don't think you're going to get to anything in a first conversation. That might be 30 conversations, but you will get to that because now you've built a relationship versus a one a one trick pony. You know what I mean?
Drew, I got so much from this conversation. I'm excited to have you back on the show. I'd love to have you back on the show. Talk to people. I got to get my Bible out. I mean, I don't mean the holy book. I
No,
mean,
I know my
although
Bible.
maybe that one too on Sunday, but the every quarter looking at the names of customers and reaching out to people. And I love the that you I love the Groundhog Day card because it's so original. If I got that, I'm not even knowing when Groundhog Day is, and now I'm thinking about you. And I love the ask of the referral at the third call because you're staying in touch. There's Max. You're staying in touch with people, and you're saying that. Uh, so this helps me. That when you called people to stay in touch with people, they actually brought up to you who they know in their life that you needed to meet. That's very inspiring. I learned that from you
it,
today. It's
it,
a great reminder to that sales doesn't have to be feel pressured.
Correct. You shouldn't have to pressure anybody to buy something from you. They should innately want to buy it from you.
Man, if you're listening to this podcast, how can people follow you? What's the
Just go to
fastest?
pearlautoadvocates.com. I am on TikTok, Instagram, Drew Pearl. Just look up Drew Pearl and you'll find me. Drew does deals #1 on TikTok and Drew Pearl on Instagram and Facebook.
I'm going to follow you, and I can't wait to do this again, my friend. If you're listening to this podcast, please share this with somebody that needs a wake-up call when it comes to sales, leadership, culture, and definitely is thinking about buying a car or a dealership. Thinking about being innovative and where the puck is going. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. We will see you next time. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.